glad my mother's dead. I mean, I'm not glad my mother's dead. I miss her terribly. But I'm glad she's dead and not in the middle of this. She'd be one of the first ones in the meat grinder of this disease. Fighting a brain tumor, radiation therapy, her whole half of the family tree riddled with heart conditions. So, if the blood clot traveling up her legs into her lungs hadn't got her, and the brain tumor hadn't got her, then the COVID-19 would have. If the blood clot hadn't come early and spared her, then she'd be in the last month or two of the extra 6 to 12 the radiation was supposed to give her. The headaches, the brain pressure, the inability to control her bowels, and in all this indignity, we wouldn't have been able to visit her. I mean, the nursing staff at the rehab center was wonderful, but there's no substitute for friends or families. She would have gone through this and alone. She was spared the suffering, but ours got ours early. If she was here, she'd be screaming down the house about the incompetence of the government. I mean, she watched a lot of MSNBC, all the wannabe authoritarianism and none of the ruthless efficiency. A friend of mine came out to me as a Cuomo-sexual, the smooth movement and the deployment of ventilators as their kink. Mom wouldn't have been all that into Andrew Cuomo. I mean, there's a lot of people right now who wish Andrew Cuomo was president, but I can see Mom saying, I wish the person who got the most votes in the last election was president. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have dismantled the pandemic preparedness infrastructure. We wouldn't have retreated from the community of nations. We wouldn't have hobbled the intelligence community and the military and the press. We would have managed this. We would have tested the hell out of people. We would have this squashed and under control. I can see Mom yelling at the TV, this is a cover-up. Confusing the dog who's wondering who she's shouting at and if he did something wrong, and just annoying the cat who didn't trust human beings. And if it is a cover-up, how's it happening in plain sight? I mean, if it's on live TV, doesn't it still count? I have a veteran friend who did multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. And, she's a mime, which is not that important, but I find it incongruous that with all that military service, she could still find joy in physical comedy after all that. But she said, while this big, single, overwhelming, all-consuming thing is going on, whether war or pandemic, life still continues to be life. Babies are born. People fall in and out of love. People get cancer and have heart attacks, and it's all the more surprising and shocking than it normally would be. And there's this giant, overarching plot line going on, and we're not used to competing major plot lines. And there's not usually there, but sometimes there are. And all I want to say, she would say, is don't feel like your side's plot is any less important than the big one. Don't feel like you need to downplay how exciting or devastating it is. It is more so because of the context. And overwhelmed is the exact right human feeling that it should be. Except I got this reversed. The big thing already happened. I'm 9 months into the first year without her. It feels like yesterday or a million years ago. That's my big thing. All the rest of this stuff going around me is terrible, but it's just noise. I can't feel worse than I already do. The worst possible thing I could imagine has already happened. I mean, the world pandemic is just a subplot to the fact I still miss my mom. Part of me wants to be the normal kind of upset along with everyone else. You know, overwhelmed, invested by the day by day. To have that normal again and these other feelings be the extra. I'd love to be upset about something tiny. I love to have my brain and my heart in alignment with everyone else. But they stubbornly refuse. I just want to be back in proportion again. I'm sorry, doctor. I love this web appointment thing, but for grief therapy, but since we can't be face to face right now, or for anything, and I really appreciate you listening, but I'm just going on and on. And did you have something you wanted me to talk about else?